Hi, I'm Jackzilla, and I'm here with the first episode of Melee Economics. In this series, I want to work on putting quantifiable data behind the things we talk about all the time. The influence of the gods, the meta changes over time, the balance of the game, the relationship between ice climbers and global warming. Hard science. I'm an amateur, so the statistics in this series won't be perfect, but I want to see if the stories and narratives you hear on commentary and see on social media line up with the data we have available. In the first few episodes of this series, I'm going to be working from a database I made of every national tournament listed on the Smash Wiki. The database includes variables like year, the characters picked in top 8 of a tournament, the entrance of a tournament, the prize pool of a tournament, and most importantly, how much money each character made in top 8. The goal of the database is to make each Melee character a sort of income bracket, and figure out how much each character has made on a year-by-year basis over Melee's history. I want to keep these videos efficient, so let's dive into the first topic of discussion, Fox, McCloud, and Melee tier lists. Fox was considered the second or third best character in Melee from October of 2002 to March of 2005. Then, in July of 2006, he took the top spot over Sheik and has sat there ever since. He's also by far the most represented character in Melee top 8s at Nationals. For some, that alone is evidence that he's the best character. But what makes a character good? Hax's famous tier list from 2014 espoused a top-down philosophy. A tier list could be built on weighted expectations of a character's performance versus Fox, with some consideration given to other matchups. Fox himself was given the top spot due to his enormous potential if played perfectly. Another school of thought is that tier lists should reflect success at a human level, which severely nerfs Fox. My data collection put together a narrative a little closer to what C9 Tafo and TSM Leffen have been discussing recently in relation to Marth Fox, and the narrative that has appeared in Smash GG blog posts. In the real world, Fox is dominant in how often he's picked, but not necessarily how often he wins. In keeping with the world of economics and business, my model values earnings above all. In aggregate, a good character might be one that gets a greater portion of the prize pool than they are as a portion of the characters picked. That's the model of the metrics and graphs I'm going to be showing. For this project, if a character was picked at all, I considered them to be equally impactful on a player's winnings as the other characters. This is an assumption that's pretty imperfect, but it made data collection much easier and still reflects some truths or philosophies about Melee. So first, let's look at the Starwing pilot himself, Fox McCloud. How you should read this graph is pretty straightforward. If Fox is picked 8 times in top 8 out of 16 character picks, he's been picked 50% of the time. Therefore, we'd expect him to get 50% of the prize pool. This could be divided with a first place finish and a few 7th place finishes, or a bunch of finishes in the middle. As long as the total earnings are 50% of the prize pool, Fox has lived up to expectations. The graph shows the difference between those expectations and reality. Fox has had a tumultuous history. Some periods like 2004 to 2007 and 2009 to 2013, he was doing pretty poorly. Most Foxes didn't make top 8s, and when they didn't make it far. Over other years, he blows up. The 2008 spike and 2015 spike are notable. The 2008 spike can be explained by the limited data after Brawl was released, and the 2015 spike has a more relevant meta-related explanation in Leffen, Armada, and Mango all doing well and all playing Fox at the largest tournaments. Overall, Fox's average earnings percent versus pick percent is a measly 0.8%. So over the course of Melee's history, Fox players have earned about 1% more than we'd expect given how often Fox is played by great players. Does that mean that Fox is simply a fun character with high variance, and therefore he dominates our psyche? Or is he truly the best and we're all just bad, and he'll soon take over? Even Fox's best year, he was held to under 10%. Is 20XX a lie? But it's not great statistics to show just one character, so let's add Puff. Now we see a story emerge. Fox and Puff have coexisted, they've countered each other, and they both face a roller coaster of results. But consistently, Puff outperforms her expectations. As we'll touch on later, Puff is carried on the backs of Mango and Hungrybox for most of Melee history, but this is still an impressive achievement and might tell us something about the character. This graph is still not the best I can do with a public school education because I think it's unfair to treat 2008 with as much weight as 2016. We've come a long way, so let's look at a graph with all the relevant characters, with all the eras lumped together based on prize pools and entrants. In honesty, each half year of 2015 onwards has been as large as 2003 to 2008 due to invitational prize pools from events like Summit and the general explosive growth of Melee, so even this graph isn't perfect. But I don't want perfect to be the enemy of good, and this graph devalues the early era as well, which is what we need. And here we are, one angle of the history of Melee's meta. There are so many stories here. Marth's dominance in the era of Ken, the rise of floaties, and the enormous influence of the gods. But where's Fox? he sits at barely below 0 in 2017, along with Falco, Ice Climbers, Pikachu, etc. Marth and Sheik are characters who are the most likely to make top 8s without having long runs. So what does the tier list look like in this world? Maybe tier list is generous and this is more of a, by the way, X carries you list. Let's see, looking at the whole of Melee history, we get Puff, the clear overperformer, with Peach right behind, Marth, Fox, Falco, and Ices break even, and the rest do poorly. If we look at 2011 onwards, it's similar, but with Falco and Fox carrying more. If we look at 2013 onwards, you see Falco slip down. And I like this year as a starting date because of the nearly $1 million I track in the Melee earnings database. 83% of it is from 2013 to 2017. If we look at 2017 alone, you can see 2 floaties overperforming on income and a sea of break-even below. Single-year tier lists are interesting in that you could probably name each player these rankings correspond to. But the moral of the story, at least for me, over and over, is that there's more to Fox than we like to discuss. He simply doesn't win as much as we'd expect, and while Fox is by far the most common character in top 8, he doesn't win more money than people play him. So let's get into some of the limitations of this project. One obvious one is that using percent versus percent, even with era grouping, still weighs individual tournaments poorly. I claim to be obsessed with money, but have barely used absolute dollars as a measure. So here are some graphs of average earnings versus expected earnings based on character representation. As you can see, the story is pretty similar to our 2013 on Modern Era tier list. This makes sense, since so much of the Smash earnings come from that time, a metric weighed on absolute dollars would represent that era most. The greatest limit of the project could be how cluttered the top 8 data is with gods. Let's look at the absolute charts again, but this time let's look at only the tournaments that Hungrybox did not make top 8 or did not attend. We see that Puff is still overrepresented, but Fox and Peach suddenly shoot up. Even without Hungrybox, the gods narrative is still obvious. Armada and Mango win the most money at tournaments without Hungrybox in top 8. So let's take out Armada and Hungrybox in top 8. Their character specialization skews the data. But leave Axe. Pikachu needs him. Removing those tournaments gets rid of 2009 and 2010, and brings us a whole new meta where Puff returns, and Marth. Suddenly the graph looks like every Ken tournament, and most Mango vs Mutaking tournaments. But still, Fox is not at the top. So a final graph, the absolute earnings of characters, but with historic constraints. No matter what we do, we can see the gods narrative. Ice Climbers love when Hungrybox, Mango, Luffin, and Armada are Mia, and Fox actually goes slightly negative when we remove Luffin in top 8 tournaments. Averaging the nulls gives us the same tier list ordered as they were before, including every god, with the data simply compressed. So what does this mean for Melee? If you believe the competitors in top 8 over time are our best reflection of theoretically perfect or, human level Melee, this list actually makes some sense. Or maybe it will with another decade of data. Another potential problem of this project is the assumption that placing below top 8 has no value. Many players put hundreds of dollars into traveling across the country for the chance to get 33rd. There are some tournaments where payouts go deeper than top 8, usually no greater prize than venue fee being covered, and placing 9th consistently could be good enough to earn a sponsor. There's still monetary and personal value to be held at all levels of placement. Even going 0-2 in pools might have the value of feeling really, really important to the Melee community. Whenever I see Armada win, I know I'm at least 0.05% of his prize, and that feels good. If you think my data is too haphazard or incomplete, or think money isn't a good enough measure, then we'll need more data from the vastness of top 32 at Nationals, or even top 64. One thing I'm looking forward to in the coming years is the development of Smash GG stats. A more expansive Smash GG API, or more blog posts like the year-end character review series by Kelly Goodchild will add more facts to our ravings about Melee. But for now, this is what we've got. This has been the first episode of Melee Economics. Next time, I'll continue the discussion on character rankings, balance in Melee, tournament economics, the history of Melee, or other things if I hear good suggestions. I'll leave you with one last graph to underline how easy it is for me to manipulate this data, so you don't end up trusting me too much and saying stupid stuff on Reddit and Twitter. I'm Jackzilla, and I'll see you soon.